Good evening and welcome to the July 24th, 2023 meeting of the Planning Board of the Town of Chatham. My name is Catherine Halpern. I'm Chair of the Planning Board of the Town of Chatham. This meeting is being recorded and will be available shortly hereafter for scheduled and on-demand viewing on any smartphone or tablet device. If anyone else is recording the meeting, please let us know. I'll give you a few seconds in case you're connected remotely. Also, this meeting is being conducted in a hybrid format, both in person and remotely, and I'll read a few points regarding that. Pursuant to Governor Healy's March 29th, 2023 signing of the Acts of 2023, extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, GL 30A 20, until March 31, 2025, this meeting of the Chatham Planning Board is being conducted in person and via remote participation. Every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. A reminder that persons who would like to listen to this meeting while it's in progress may do so by calling the phone number 1-508-945-4410, and the conference ID is 554-304-892#. You may also join the meeting online using Microsoft Teams through the link in the agenda that's posted on the town website. While this is a live broadcast and simulcast on Channel 18, despite our best efforts, we may not be able to provide for real-time access. And as I mentioned, we will post a record of this meeting on the town's website as soon as possible. So let's start with a roll call of board members. I think Bob Wirtschafter is connected remotely.
Yeah, Bob Wirtschafter here.
If we could just hear you say present, Bob.
Present. Present. Here.
Okay, great. Art Sprue,
Art Sprue, present.
Warren Chain,
Warren Chain, present.
Megan Story,
Megan Story, present.
Charlene Greenhalgh,
Charlene Greenhalgh, present.
and Bob Dupas.
Bob Dubas, present.
And this is Catherine Halpern. I'm also present. Anyone on the board need to recuse themselves from any matters on tonight's agenda? I don't think so. All right. So let's move to our first agenda item, which is the minutes from July 10th meeting. Any corrections, additions? May I have a motion to approve the minutes for July 10th as drafted?
Madam Chair, I move approval of the July 10, 2023 meeting minutes as presented.
Thank you. May I have a second?
This is Warren Chain, I second.
All right. Bob Wirtschafter?
Bob Wirtschafter, yes.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
That was
No?
a yes.
All right, I'm
Art
going to
Sprue?
call in.
Art Sprue, approve.
Warren Chain?
Warren Chain, approve.
Megan Story?
Megan
We're
Story,
absent.
abstain.
Yes, thank you. And Charlene Greenhalgh?
Charlene Greenhalgh, approve.
Bob Dupas?
Bob Dubas, approve.
And this is Catherine Halpern. I also approve the minutes for July 10th. Next item on our agenda is a public hearing regarding the protective zoning bylaw amendment and map change for 1610 and 0 Main Street. Before we get started, I will just read through our public hearing procedures, and then we'll start with the legal notice being read by our clerk, Charlene Greenhalgh. So the public hearing procedures will open the public hearing. First step is the public notice is read by the planning board clerk. Then there's a presentation by the applicant. I think Ryan Christenberry, our principal planner, will present on behalf of the town. Then we have board questions and comments. Then public statements in favor of the application. Then I would read any correspondence. I don't think there is any. Then public statements opposing the application. Then the applicant gets the opportunity for rebuttal. We have further board comments. After that, if the board is ready to vote, we would vote to close the public hearing and enter formal deliberations, and at which point we would take a formal vote. In this case, it would be to recommend or not recommend this article to the special town meeting. And just a reminder that audience participation is not permitted after we close the public hearing and the board is in formal deliberation. So I'll ask Charlene to begin by reading the public notice.
which I was able to blow up 200% on my computer. In a Chatham Planning Board legal notice, in accordance with the provisions of Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 5, the Chatham Planning Board will hold a hybrid public hearing on Monday, July 24th at 5 p.m. at the Town Offices Annex, Large Meeting Room, 261 George Ryder Road, and via Microsoft Teams to take public comments on the following proposal amendments to the protective zoning bylaw. To see if the town will vote to amend its existing protective zoning bylaw by rezoning 25,310 square feet of land at 1610 Main Street, further identified on the assessor's map as E9E-2-1, and 33,080 square feet of land at 0 Main Street, further identified on the assessor's map as 9E-2-2, from the R20 Basic District to the Municipal Basic District, as depicted on the following map, provided that the change in zoning approved hereby shall be subject to and contingent upon special town meeting approval of article. Pursuant to Governor Healy's March 29, 2023 signing of the Acts of 2023, extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 20, until March 31, 2025, this meeting of the Chatham Planning Board is being conducted in person and via remote participation. The hearing will be accessible by interested parties and the general public through the following link, which was read by the chair, which can also be found on the Planning Board meeting agenda and on the Chatham, Town of Chatham website.
Great, thank you. And then presentation by the applicant. I'll ask Ryan Christenberry to please go ahead.
Just a brief explanation on the article. The purpose is to amend the basic zoning district designation of the subject parcels from R20 to municipal, as the intended use of the subject property is a municipal use, which should be designated in accordance with the protective zoning bylaws requirements for the municipal district. Approving the subject zoning district changes provides greater flexibility in design and accommodating site needs. Special town meeting is scheduled for September 18th at 6 p.m. Special town meeting action on this article is contingent upon the passage of an article for a new Center for Active Living.
Great, thank you. So now we would go to board questions and comments, and we have reviewed this rezoning article twice already, but are there any questions or comments, further questions? Then we go, any public statements in favor of the application? Yes, please go ahead and please go to the mic and please give us your name.
*6.
My name's Nancy Fields. I live in South Chatham. I'm on the COA board, but I'm here just as an individual resident this evening. And I urge you to pass this. As you know, we're fighting really hard to gain acceptance for our plans for a new Center for Active Living, and we just are looking for all, support that we can get from the various commissions and boards that need to approve it before we can move ahead. So I urge you to approve it.
Thank
If anyone
you.
has any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Any questions? Thank you. Then we would read correspondence, but I think there is no correspondence. Rick Levitt. Yes, so is this a statement in favor of the application, Mr. Levitt?
Yes, it is.
Because then you should go ahead.
Thank you.
Please.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, Catherine. I just want to
But I
remind
think you're
everyone.
muted. We can't
We
hear you.
can't hear him in here.
Okay.
Can you hear me now? Madam Chair, can you hear me? Oh, my.
We can't hear you in the room yet, Rick, so hold on a second.
And you'll have to start from the beginning.
We can't hear Bob either. It's clearly a yeah.
Well, are we having problems, technical problems? Oh, my.
Yeah, we need to let him know to start over. There he is. Okay, now. Okay, good.
Am I live now?
You're not on yet.
No.
Hey, Rick, I can hear you, but they can't.
Okay. I'm in
So-
favor.
No, they can't hear you.
Yeah,
I
well-
can hear you because I'm on remote as well.
Well, perhaps, Bob, you could just.
I can't get through to them either.
Oh,
Oh, all right.
oh,
So I'm just letting you know, they need to fix this.
Yeah.
yes. Yes, that's fine. That's fine. We'll stand by. Thank you. Yes.
Hello, everybody on the Teams meeting. This is Market Channel 18. We're sorting out the issue, and we'll be back with you in just a few moments. Thank you. Mr. Levitt, are you on the call?
I am.
Good. We can hear you now.
All right.
Hey, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Bob.
No, we can't hear you.
But you might want to, this is Catherine, you might want to start from the beginning because we didn't hear anything that you've said so far.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I'll be very brief. I'm very much in favor of this article or bill. Yes, article. I'm reading. I know your committee is very in tune with our comprehensive plan, and I'm reading now from our comprehensive plan. It's section 5. It's called Historic Preservation and Community Character. And in it, again, I'm quoting, it encourages traditional patterns of development and compatibility with the town. It encourages a mix of uses, traditional in New England villages, including public buildings like a COA, Center for Active Living, a mix of public buildings and residences. So you're changing zoning from a residential district to a municipal or public district. And this is very much encouraged by our comprehensive plan, and I support it. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Rick. Any other public statements in favor of the application? I don't see anyone. We have no correspondence as far as I know, so then we'll go to public statements opposing the application. Anyone connected remotely would like to speak? I don't see anyone. And so we don't really need a rebuttal. Any further board comments before we vote? Because then our next action would be to vote to close the public hearing and enter deliberation.
Madam Chair, I move we close the public hearing.
Thank you. May I have a second?
Art Spru, I second.
All right. Bob Wirtschafter?
Bob Wirtschafter, yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh,
Art
great. Okay.
Spru?
Art Spru, approve.
Warren Chain?
Warren Chain, approve.
Megan Story?
Megan Story, approve.
Charlene Greenhalgh?
Charlene Greenhalgh, approve.
Bob Dubus?
Bob Dubus, approve.
And this is Catherine Halper, and I also approve that we close the public hearing and enter formal deliberations, but I think we can move right to vote. Yes, Charlene.
Madam Chair, I move that the planning board recommend this article to the town meeting.
Thank you. May I have a second to that motion?
This is Warren Chain, I second.
All right. Bob Wirtschafter?
Bob Wirtschafter, approve.
Art Spru?
Art Spru, approve.
Warren Chain?
Warren Chain, approve.
Megan Story?
Megan Story, approve.
Charlene Greenhalgh?
Charlene Greenhalgh, approve.
Bob Dubus?
Bob Dubus, approve.
And this is Catherine Halper, and I also approve. Thank you very much. So the public hearing is completed. We'll move to our next agenda item. This was intended to just be a brief overview and informal discussion of all of the long-range planning projects that we have on our plate, and most of which have been on our plate for some time, just to have it fresh in our mind as we move forward. Obviously, we will be continuing to emphasize West Chatham Neighborhood Center, moving forward with that. We'll be looking at the housing recommendations with Gloria and Ryan that will be incorporated into the West Chatham Neighborhood Center. I think we're also going to be looking at town-wide housing initiatives that Gloria and Ryan will bring before us, and also potentially this transition zone that we discussed on the east of West Chatham Neighborhood Center that would allow greater residential density, but not include the commercial piece. So those were some of the immediate projects that we're looking at that will continue full speed ahead. In addition, and that's a lot, but in addition to that, we did start, and you'll see in your packet the memo from the Select Board in 2019, in January 2019, for us to look at a bylaw regarding the massing of residential structures. Before COVID, we put a lot of time into that and a lot of research. We met with the Truro Planning Board. We researched some of the other bylaws in, I think it was Chilmark and Brewster, the work that was being done there. We also, Bob Wirtschafter and our former principal planner did a lot of research about the Chatham properties in particular, and we have an enormous amount of data that's been collected and analyzed, and that's basically where we stopped because other things came to the fore. COVID came to the fore, maybe the airport issues came to the fore. So we have a lot of data ready to go. What I would propose that as soon as we make enough headway in our West Chatham Neighborhood Center and housing initiatives, that we come back to that we revisit that data and the analysis of that data, and then take a look where that impels us to go in terms of drafting a bylaw to address the massing of residential structures. So I would suggest we put that next on our list. It is really important. Maybe, Ryan, do you want to let people know we've had a lot of applications? I'll let you inform the board.
So first, I've had a chance to review the analysis that was done by Bob, but I look forward to having a conversation with him to just understand things a little bit better. But just anecdotally, the CHC had 9 applications on their most recent agenda, all of which were complete demo and rebuilds. So I think that there's a significant need to take up this issue.
Yeah, and just as an anecdote, ever since I've been on the planning board, this has been one of our priorities. And I joined the planning board in 2012, and so it's been on our plate for a long time. And it is I think it's timely that we return our attention to that. Also, it's mentioned that we want to look at our site plan review criteria and subdivision rules and regs, and those don't require annual town meeting. They just require board approval and public hearing. Art Sprue has already put in a lot of work on the subdivision rules and regs, and he has a draft ready to take a look. And I think what we were thinking is maybe internally Ryan and Art would review what you've got.
Need to flesh out a few things, yes.
Yeah, possibly with DPW director, if you want to involve him as well.
DPW is an important one.
Yeah, but Art has put a lot of excellent work in that, and it's ready to go with a little internal work and then brought before the board for consideration. So we sort of keep putting it off because there's always so much else to do, and we have this idea that Chatham is built out and there's not going to be another subdivision, but somehow or other they find them, and we always have more subdivisions. So yeah, so I think it's really good to do. And in general, what we've found historically is that in some cases we needed more specificity in the subdivision rules and reg that would give the planning board the authority to implement more specific requirements. Yeah.
I think I actually wrote those rules and regs.
Oh, you
when I
did?
was here as the assistant planner. Oh, so many years ago.
Yeah. Well, they're good. I'm not saying they're not good. I'm
Oh,
just
no,
saying-
they needed sprucing even.
I don't think she was defending them.
I'm not defending them. But I have a lot of experience since then of
Yeah,
writing. so.
yeah. Anyway, so that's also on the plate, and what else? Oh, yes, the floodplain, housing density, housing. Yes, the other neighborhood centers, once we get West Chatham formulated, we can move on to Cornfield and Kroll Road. But also the floodplain bylaw needs some review and updating. I don't know, Ryan, if you want to comment on that?
I believe a lot of communities adopted those amendments consistent with the state model in their sort of
Yes.
last round of Springtown meetings.
Yes,
I
we-
believe we did as well.
We did.
Okay.
Yes, yes.
So if there are additional revisions, I'm not clear on what those.
What I understand, and maybe it needs some review, is that the implementing the floodplain bylaw in the field is, what's the word, problematic. And so we've heard some feedback from the engineers and building commissioner, and that it might need some reconsideration. That's a sort of general understanding that I have.
Okay.
But I think it's something that you need to look at. I'll ask you to look at.
Yes, I'll check
Yeah.
in with the building commissioner on that. It may be relative to the bylaw that I drafted the last
Yes,
time I was here.
that's right. That you worked very hard on with the board and with the engineers. And, but I think when they took it out to the field, and also because of some changed conditions in the field now, that some of the implementation is problematic and some of the language needs to be revised. So
Okay.
that's my general understanding, but I'll leave it to you to ferret that out. But I'm putting that as, and if the board agrees, I'm putting that as a second priority, a lower priority than the other things. Yeah. Housing comes first, West Chatham Neighborhood Center, housing, massing of residential structures, all those things come first. Okay, great. I think, I see everybody's nodding their heads, so I think we're good. Great, great. So just to keep it in mind and just keep the plan that we want to move ahead on additional things, all these additional things. Okay. Any discussion or? Okay, great. So,
Madam Chairman?
yes,
I was the representative for the committee that was drafting a regulation for short-term rentals.
oh, yes.
And in the course of those discussions, multiple times, it was brought up that there are examples within town of residences in the R20 zones or whatever, residences that are potentially being operated as businesses. And that it was the position of that committee, I believe, with the concurrence of town council, that if in fact there were such an issue in town, that the proper remedy to deal with it was through zoning. And I would only say that's what happened. I don't know if there's an issue or not. I don't know if we need to put it potentially on our list. But to the extent that discussion in the committee for short-term rentals correctly reflected the facts, then it perhaps is something that should be considered as to whether and what action zoning would need to be taken. So just a question as far as, because we put it aside as saying if that's the case, it has nothing to do with short-term rentals
Right,
regulations.
okay. Any comments from your side? I mean, I'm just not so familiar with the issue, I have to confess.
I think, I mean, it's an important issue in every community right now. And I just watched a really good presentation that I'd like to forward to you because it gives you some ideas about, depending upon what your short-term rental market is, this is how you can approach regulating it. It's different whether you're a seasonal economy, an urban economy, a rural economy, and so regulating to the type of market that you have. There are some good models out there that different communities are starting to develop, and so I think it could give us some guidance. But at the moment, the town has landed with the rental registration program with the Board of Health, and I would expect it would evolve from there. But if there's an appetite for zoning, I can bring you some models that might work for us.
I think that would be great. Charlene?
If town council also opined or suggested that there's a zoning remedy issue or, provision in there, if we could get something from town council, that would be very helpful.
Yeah.
If we don't have to reinvent the wheel on the meat of things, that's always a good thing.
Okay, and Megan?
I just want to make sure that, because I am actually fully on board with reviewing that and probably fully on board with town council and the committee as well. My concern is that I think that we should get through the meat definitely of the West Chatham
Yeah.
piece. And I
Yeah.
feel that way because I think these are both prickly. And I would rather see us sort of get one done and then move to the next.
I thoroughly support all of that. I didn't mean to even put that question on the list. I just wanted to raise it. It came up in the committee that came up with a regulation on short-term rentals, that our regulation really wouldn't address certain situations in town, and that the feedback was we shouldn't even bother to go there. The guidance was if there's a problem, it would probably need to be dealt with through zoning. So I just wanted to throw it out there because it came up and I haven't heard it since. I certainly wouldn't even put it on the list of projects for this board unless, staff took the opinion that, well, maybe it does. So.
It can certainly be an academic exercise for now, and I can share with you some new information that I've just come across that I think is really informative.
Great. I think that would be helpful. Yeah. I think it's worthy to consider, but I would agree, West Chatham, housing, massing of residential structures, something like that for priorities. Any other comments? No. So let's move to the next agenda item, which is the reorganization of the board, which we do every year. And we vote for chair, vice chair, and clerk. So, Arthur, did you want to say something, or shall I? And others?
You're welcome to start, but I have some thoughts here.
And notes as well. Okay.
Yes, I even made some notes. A year ago, we had this conversation, I think it's before Charlene and Megan were on the board. One of the challenges that we had about a year ago is we were trying to advance the West Chatham Neighborhood Center. And the Board of Selectmen had asked Planning Board to take on this initiative associated with the airport and address it as part of the West Chatham Neighborhood Center. So that put a little bit of a pause in what we're doing because I, as a planning board member, was not very familiar with many of the aspects of what was being proposed here. So I proposed to the board at that point that I remain as vice chair, and I would do the lion's share of the homework to understand background of airports and RPZs and everything else so that I was educating myself, but at the same time I could comprise the information down into a small footprint of a spreadsheet. And it, well, that's what engineers do. We make spreadsheets. It's our way of organizing and communicating. And it was helpful for me because then I could see the themes. And once that information, I consolidated it down and I shared it with the board, I think it helped the board get their arms around how to tackle this and feel comfortable about it. That took a lot of work. I spent about 80, 100 hours on it. I absolutely don't mind at all. I mean, I felt very comfortable in doing this. We're still at this juncture with the West Chatham Neighborhood Center, but we have a little bit, one other item associated with that, and that's the housing initiative or component. I think that's the last piece that needs to be done here. So when I took a look at this, and what we just reviewed a few minutes ago about the long-range planning, the West Chatham Neighborhood Center has been led by Catherine all this time. We have been strong participants. Housing and initiative has been mostly Ryan and Gloria have helped us. They've been the champion on that. The massing of residential structures has been Bob Wirtschafter. He's sort of like champion that did the work in the background. And I took the initiative of the site plan and subdivision rules and regulations. I did a draft, but it's 2 years old. I haven't touched it since then. I'm proposing that I continue on in my role as I am. I've talked to Catherine about this, if she would be willing to stay on one more year as chair and push through the West Chatham Neighborhood Center. I think that's our first priority. And the other initiatives can be pursued with the three entities that are still in those roles. I think there needs to be more work on each of them in order to get them off the finish line. And as I've seen, you can't just rely on one person. You can't just rely on community development. You can't just rely on one of the board members. We have to do some homework. So I don't mind doing that. I'm strongest in dealing with the rules and regulations as a first draft. Certainly, there's got to be a lot of fleshing out by the board members and make sure that everything makes sense. So I'm proposing that as a suggested way to go for one more year. If there's another thought process by the board members, I'm certainly open to that, but I would suggest that as a possibility of which way to go.
Is the chair willing to continue as the chair?
Yes. So Arthur and I talked, and Ryan and I talked, and the answer is yes. I mean, to be honest with you, I'm fine either way, but I think what Arthur has said made sense. And I think for continuing with what we're doing, I mean, I've been intimately involved with the West Chatham Neighborhood Center since 2014, you know, so yes, and I think it makes some sense to do that. Yes, Megan.
I was going to say, actually, before you even mentioned it, that the West Chatham Center, you've been leading it. Sort of, if we're ever going to get there, not to put you in that position, but like it makes sense to have you hopefully bring it to the finish line.
Yeah, yeah.
I am clearly a novice and wouldn't recommend myself for anything, but after hearing you, I'm happy to help you and Gloria out just because that is my area of knowledge. So if there's anything I can do for that, especially, you know, offline, I don't know how to say that in English, but you know what I mean. Too much time with techies. But yeah, if you need any help at all, I'm there.
Yeah, it'd be great. Any other comments from board members? Do you want to make a motion?
Can I make a motion to have me also stay as clerk? I guess I can.
Yes, you can.
Madam
You
Chair,
can
I would
nominate
move
yourself.
that Catherine remain as chair, Arthur remain as vice chair, and I remain as clerk.
Great. And can I have a second to that motion?
Art Spruce, second.
All right, let's do a vote. Bob Wirtschafter, did you hear that?
Bob Wirtschafter, approve.
Thank you. Art Spru,
Art Spru, approve.
Warren Chain,
Warren Chain, approve.
Megan Story,
Megan Story, approve.
Charlene Greenhalgh,
Charlene Greenhalgh, approve.
Bob Dubus,
Bob Dubus, approve.
and this is Catherine Halper, and I also approve. Great. Thank you very much. And I would just like to comment that I think we have, our board now is an amazing group of extremely talented and intelligent and dedicated people. And it's just a pleasure to have all of you, as well as our principal planner and Gloria. So I think we've got a great team, really great team. All right. Any other public comment on anything that's been discussed tonight? Otherwise, it looks like Warren will make it to Shakespeare, and I'd ask for Bob Dubus's favorite motion.
Bob Dubus, move to approve, move to adjourn, rather.
Okay.
Charlene Greenhalgh, second.
All right, Bob Wertschafter, are you still there? He's adjourned. All right. Art Sprue?
Art Sprue,
I
approve.
adjourn.
Okay. Warren Chain?
Warren Chain, approve.
Megan Story?
Megan Story, approve.
Charlene Greenhalgh?
Charlene Greenhalgh, approve.
Bob Dubus?
Bob Dubus sometimes approves.
Okay, and this is Catherine Halpern. I also approve that we are adjourned, and let's note the time as 5:37? 5:37. That was pretty good. Yeah, okay.
Thank
Thank
you
you,
all.
everybody. Enjoy
Bye.
the rest of the evening.
All right, bye-bye.